This is Success in Excess, where elite founders, lawyers, and clinic owners engineer success through strategy, scale, and systems. Powered by �W𝐢𝐜𝐜𝐜𝐿.
I always knew I wanted to work with business owners, with entrepreneurs specifically. And as I started practicing, and I had only been practicing maybe 3 years before I opened my own firm, which is
Oh,
kind of
wow.
risky. But at that point, I had done enough in the litigation world working with businesses to know that there was a market that wasn't being served. And that's the serial entrepreneurs, the ones that are not necessarily startup mode per se, but they're starting to gain traction, they're scaling, and they don't really want to go to the big law firms where they have to talk to 3, 4 paralegals before they get an actual attorney on the phone, and they want responsiveness. And at the same time, a solo is a little too small to be able to handle the complexity of their needs as they grow and scale. So I knew that there was a law firm out there that, to my mindset, still doesn't exist. I think we're filling that gap.
Absolutely. And I mean, just the experience, and you're an entrepreneur yourself, right? You started your own
Mhm.
firm. So you know the ins and outs, and exactly just you explained, I am more likely as an entrepreneur to take advice from an individual that has gone through the grind
Right.
themselves, right? The
Is
ups and
going through it,
downs.
still going through it. Yeah.
Still going through it versus somebody that's, read some documents and he's working for a bigger firm, doesn't know anything about, 80-hour weeks that don't produce anything.
Right, right.
And just, the risk, you understand the risk that comes with, even right now, you went from 50 to now 100% owner. Yes, you get to
Mhm.
make all the decisions, but at the same time,
I
everything
have all
falls
the
on you.
liability, and they have to fit
Boom,
quickly.
boom. I mean, they have to understand, and I always try to tell people, and they say it's scary, but if you have that mindset where you eat what you kill at the end of the day, it puts you in some people say it's very scary. You don't have any
Mhm.
support. You don't have any safety net. But do you want to live a life where, one, you're making somebody else rich, which I just detest the idea of that. I hate it. And second to that is, I want to control my destiny. If I want to make
Right.
$1 million, if I want to make 10 million or 100 million, a billion, reality is this: I'm in full control. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, there's nobody to blame but myself, right?
Right.
And that's the biggest thing that I think entrepreneurs kind of have an understanding of, where it's just,
Mhm.
there's no blame game. I didn't get my bonus this year because they
Right.
didn't like me, or corporate passed me up because there's a prettier girl, or blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah. I
There's
mean,
no
it's really,
victimization in this game. We're all in the same race, and it's a race against ourselves, a race against what we wanna be, what we think we're capable of. Absolutely.
well, so as I segue into one aspect, so you went into this, you understood that there was a gap in the market, there was a need. What have you learned along the way, whether it be in law or business, that what you thought of, let's say way back when, is completely wrong from what it really is?
A couple things, and some of those lessons were learned this year. Definitely, scaling up doesn't necessarily mean scaling horizontally. And what I mean by that is, when we say scaling, we think of, 50 employees and X amount in revenue and all of that. And I think with today's technology, I don't think that's true anymore. I think I'm learning very quickly that scaling means setting up a foundation that can replace you, right? Having processes and things in place, even in the legal industry, that if, God forbid, knock on wood, I get hit by a bus tomorrow, my clients aren't going to be screwed. They're going to have a plan in place and a structure in place at the firm that allows somebody to pick their stuff right back up and hit the ground running. Perfect example. One of our attorneys, experienced a family emergency that they had to deal with right before Thanksgiving. Because of the way we're set up and how collaborative we are, I was able to step right into a settlement on a a lawsuit dispute that was very contentious, dealing
Hmm,
with athletes and cross-border issues. And I actually we're sending out the documents today to circulate for closing on that deal.
nice.
So I think that that's one thing I've learned is that it doesn't mean that you have to have 50 employees to get to the goal. It means you need to have better processes, better technology, and collaboration among your team.
Preach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's a
that
big lesson.
oh my god. I
And then the
mean
other lesson I learned is that or but maybe they're not developed for that role from an entrepreneurial mindset. From an employee mindset, they may think they're ready for that, but from an entrepreneurial leadership mindset, is this somebody that can lead others? They may not fit into that future. So I
sure.
think, a lot of times we reflect in other people our competencies. So I think just because I can do it this way and I would do it this way, that the person that I'm hiring has that same skill set, and that may not be true. We have to give them
Oh,
that's some
I mean, I think one of the things I've learned this year alone, and I've kind of known it throughout the tenure of my business. This is my third business. I sold my first one. My second one's still active, and this one's going on and growing great. When you want to scale, and whether it's a firm, whether it's a digital business, whatever it is, what is that definition for scaling to you? And like you said, perfect
Mhm.
with AI, with all these systems in place. Scaling doesn't necessarily mean because you have 100 employees and multiple offices. And scaling is efficiency in systems. Is it scaled?
Absolutely.
I actually heard a saying, and this is what you kind of, popped into my mind. There's bottlenecks, right? And
Mm.
I was talking to a CEO. To give you some of my background, I've helped a lot of businesses sell their businesses. I first started out in mergers and acquisitions, helping other businesses do their valuations, exit strategies, fixing and plugging the gaps so the
Mhm.
business was ready to hit the market and
Right.
be sold for prime amount of money. Now,
Absolutely.
we found that most of the time, the biggest issue was the owner was not replaceable, you know?
100%. And that affects your pricing, that affects, your earnout. The owner thinks, "I'm gonna sell and I want out." Well, you can't get out if you want the price you're gonna get because this business can't function without you. You
Without
basically put yourself in jail. So now we have to help you get out of that. And that's 100% I think the problem with, and it's industry agnostic. You
yeah.
see that in law firms especially. You see that in all types of service type organizations. But even in, I've seen it in like manufacturing companies.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right players and the right systems in place, then you got a big problem. If you've got that one old lady that's running the firm that knows all the billing operations and the vendors and all, that's fantastic. But you better have somebody under there, and I don't want to, be gender specific or under him, and making sure that that person knows how to do their job just as well.
Well, I think also people are scared, right? So it becomes that somebody's going to steal my job, or if they know how to do it as well as me, I'm going to lose my position. But the reality is this: I was talking to my friend. He's an executive at MicroStrategy, right? Pretty big company, and he had to go. Like he was going on vacation to Japan for like a month, and he had to give out his work to some other people. And he was like, "Well, I wanted to hold back because I didn't want them to do as good as me." Because then they're going to steal my clients. But at the same time, his gripe was, I'm not getting the promotion I need because I'm the only person in the United States that does my job. And,
Mm,
I'm like, you've made yourself stuck in a jail cell because at the end of the
yeah,
day, you can't be promoted because to promote you means that that position falls
right.
apart. And if you take everything, it's just like,
Yep.
it's crazy. I was like, if you want to come up, you know, you're strong. Let somebody take your place. Make sure everybody in the team is smart enough to do what you do, and you can be elevated. Otherwise, the company's going to say, hey, let's just keep him there for the next 20 years because we don't have any other option. And then he gets screwed in the end. And you see it in
No,
corporate, you see it in entrepreneurs,
for
you see it
sure.
everywhere.
Fire me on
I mean, it's also, so you scaled your firm. How many attorneys are in the firm now?
right now 3. We actually scaled back this year. We
Mm,
went from at one point having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to going back to 3. There's another one where she's a law student, but she already knows we're going to hire her. And
right.
she'll be starting in September. She's amazing. She's a gold mine. So we'll go back up to 4. There's another one I've been courting for a little while. So we'll probably be back up to 5 before the end of the year. But instead of focusing on the number, which I had been, and that's this lesson I've talked about, I'm focused once
Yeah.
you believe.
Well, you need go getters. You need people that are not scared of success. And, working, I can't tell you how many times in my industry I've sat with attorneys and, they're managing partners, they're founding partners. Maybe they're even equity partners where they put in money to the firm. And instead of leading the lower team, and I don't mean lower as in less than, lower as in the junior associates, the associates, leading them, teach them how to hunt and get clients so the firm
Mhm.
grows. I've seen it so many times. Well, I'm going to have them show me, and then the senior associate or the partner will steal the client. And it
Mhm.
kills the morale for the associate because he's like, I'm trying to build it up. Why would you do that?
And then they go and open up shop, and I completely understand why, because if you are teaching it, you cannot be afraid of your people being great. I want when I bring people into my firm, I want them to be great and better than me. I want them to come in and excel and soar, and I want to give them the tool set to do that. If I'm, I cannot I'll give you an example. Whenever we have our consults or intakes, sometimes they come from direct referrals from the attorney. Sometimes they come from Google. I want them to.
I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. I think a big mindset shift and the reason that you have this mindset, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, and you're fairly young, right? You're smart. You
Yeah.
understand technologies. You understand how the world is operating nowadays. And if you want to be closed off in a closet on the side, I mean, the rest of the world is going to go past you. I've always told everybody this. I rather have 10% of 100 million than
Mm,
100% of 1 million, right?
yeah.
Because
Yep.
we can grow, we can build, we can do something together and make a lot of money together and build a lot of clients and relationships. But if everybody's so closed off, penny pinching because I want to make an extra grand, 2 grand, 10 grand off of this client, let's build
Mhm.
it together. Let's grow. Let's put it in the grind. We're all going to get paid anyways. We're already going
Right.
to eat. It's not like nobody's like, it's not a sacrifice of I'm not going to pay my bills this month or I can't feed myself. It's just a matter of you hunker down, you work together for 6 months, a year, you build your client base up, you build your revenues up, and then at the end, everybody's golden because everybody's put in, everybody's due their own benefit, and nobody has an issue. You, as the owner, would have no issue if your guys came together and they brought in a double the revenue in the business. I'm pretty
Right.
sure if they doubled the revenue for your firm by working together, you would have no issue hanging out kick-ass bonuses, giving them
Exactly.
raises because everybody's
Right.
winning,
And
you
we're
know?
very putting your money where your mouth is. I joke all the time right now that everybody's getting paid a lot more than me. And I'm okay with that because I'm
Yep.
the owner of the firm. I'm the one that's got skin in the game. But I have skin in the game and I'm showing them that I'm going to reward performance. We've got a long-term vision here. And if you guys are along for the ride and you help all these entrepreneurs that I want to help, that we want to help, you're going to benefit from it.
I mean, all the time. I mean, I see it. I mean, that capacity, that testament to your character, right? You own the firm. You're 100% owner. You have attorneys, you have staff. And if you're getting paid the least, and I'm not saying that you're getting paid nothing, but my point is you're putting in for your firm because it's your baby, it's your growth.
Mm,
So the more you put into it, yes, you don't reap it now, but in the long
mm,
run, you reap exponential growth from it. And at the same time, you build loyalty, you build
mm.
trust, and you surround yourself around a solid team that now can lift you up. Because at the end of the day, that's the point, right?
And that is it, right? Building that team, not being afraid to really look at who you have in the environment and say, all right, are we all rowing in the right direction? First, have I communicated what that direction is? And have I gotten buy in from the team on what that direction should be? And then once I have that and I have that buy in, okay, now that we know what the goal is, are we all moving in the right direction? Because if we're not, right? You're going to see those outliers. And then it's removing that fear to make the tough decisions. And listen, sometimes it's not even and most of the time it's not even that's not a bad person. It just might be not the right fit because there is an alignment in what their personal goals are with what the firm's goals are, right?
Mhm.
And that's okay. But it's recognizing that quickly and making that decision faster. And that is a hard skill set to develop, especially when you are a loyal person and you are an emotionally invested person, which, I like to be with my people as a leader. And, I often read books on, Henry Ford, and I've been reading all the
Good.
Ben Hardy books and all of this stuff. And what stands out most to me is like the quicker you realize the people that are rowing in the right direction and you get rid of the ones that aren't, you're doing those people a favor as well. You're
Yep.
doing the people that aren't rowing in the right direction a favor as well. because they're holding back the rest of the crew team that's trying to get to this well, never a final destination, but the next destination.
You brought up an interesting topic, right? Henry Ford. This is my third time reading the book. Vanderbilt, his
Mm.
memoirs. Man, that guy was such an amazing business owner. At one point in time, he controlled one in every $12 in the United
Wow.
States. And he's still, at one point in time, even being a billionaire. And back then, being a billionaire was like,
Yeah.
he's almost trillionaire now, right? He was sleeping on the floor in his warehouse like a homeless person because his mentality was, I'm going to go into your industry and I'm going to undercut you and I'm going to live like a pauper. I don't need to be rich. You're going to spend all your
Mhm.
money on everything. I'm going to live in a shed and we're going to undercut you till the point where you just can't do business anymore. And then we'll raise it up. You're out of the business. And now I have your business, my business, and now I can
Yep.
live the way I want. And he
You gotta
followed
be
that in
willing to do
everything.
it. You gotta be willing to scrub the toilets. You gotta be willing to take the low salary or no salary at some points. I mean, that is the entrepreneurial sacrifice. And as long as, you are okay with understanding that money is a figment of our imagination, right? You can have millions one day and you can have zero the next. But if you are deliriously relentless in your pursuit of that vision and willing to do what it takes to get there with no ego, you'll get there. It's only a matter of time.
You brought that up. Some similar thing he said. He's like, money, he never cared about money, right? He cared about power and
Mm.
position. And, people would say, you know, why aren't you're a billionaire? Why don't you live like a billionaire? And he's like,
Mhm.
I don't need to, right?
R
Why do I need to? Like, I have these businesses, I'm growing this. This
Smart.
is my focus. If I'm out at tea time and wearing a fur coat and driving the fastest car and I'm on a yacht, I'm not doing my business. At least
Right.
back then,
Right.
you're not.
And I don't
Uh,
wanna hate on the people that have that lifestyle. Kudos to you, you know? But I always think that, right? Like, I remember when I used to work at a big firm, and no, I don't wanna poop on my girlfriends that love the big Louis Vuitton bags and all that, you know? But I would always look at those bags and I'd be like, "Man, I can get a new laptop with that. That'll make me faster at my work. I can buy some new sneakers for my workouts to be more efficient." Like, and again, like, everybody gets to spend their money however they want.
Oh yeah, check it out. Actually, so my dad's college best friend, and you probably know of his family, so Malcolm Forbes, the Forbes
Mhm.
family. I mean,
Uh-huh.
this guy is very wealthy. Like when I was younger, we used to go to his islands off of Martha's Vineyard. Like he owns
Oh my
island,
god.
and like when I tell you he's the most humble, simple
Oh, I
guy,
love
he used to drive like a '69 beat up Chevy Nova with rust all over it. Like
You know what we say
literally,
about that in Spanish? No va. It doesn't go.
no, it doesn't go. I mean, he would like pick stride when he would come over to our family's house. Like, he would come in the middle of the night. Maybe if we drove down to DC and my mom would be like, "Oh, I'll make the bed up." Man, he would just throw something on the floor and be like, "I'm gonna go to sleep."
Oh,
Like you would never know who he and even his father, like when I met his father, yes, at that point they were living in a fancy whatever mansion, but even his dad was just so humble. Like they didn't have the Rolex. Yeah, I mean, what he
mhm.
liked to do during the day was go for walks and fish and little simple things where if you took all that away, you know, it meant nothing to them because it's just what purpose does it serve at the end of the day? All these
Yep.
things. And as an entrepreneur, we have to understand what is our goal. A lot of people have
Yeah.
the goal of I want to make money, but
Mhm.
why? Because,
Yeah.
like you
Who are
said,
you out at some
no,
and
there's never enough.
it's
There's never
never
enough.
enough.
I
Maybe
like
something.
have you heard of Jim Rohr? Okay, so he's like a American entrepreneur and author back from like the '80s. Little quirky in the sense of like how he talks, but the way that he's quirky talking kind of keeps you listening.
Uh-huh.
But he's very much about accountability. He's very much
Mm.
about changing your mindset and just, enough with the whole the man held me down or this did this.
Mhm.
If you want to make a difference, you know, let's say you want to quit smoking cigarettes. I'm going to do it. This is my last pack, or I'm going to do it on New Year's. No, do it now. If you really want to
Right.
do it
Why the
now
delay?
or stop bullshitting because you
Yeah.
don't really want to do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to work out in a month. I'm going to start eating. No, eat healthy now. Do what you can do now
Right?
instead of, you know?
I can vouch for that one as a former personal trainer and competitive. I competed in a few bodybuilding shows when I was
Wow.
younger. Yeah, my last year of law school too. And that's why when people are like, "Oh, my last year of law school, I was coasting," I'm like, "F you, man." Like my last year of law school was stressful as hell. I was clerking full time, taking classes, had personal training clients, was competing for my first show. But I can tell that discipline has poured into everything else I do. But I always used to tell my clients, like, why are you why first of all, why the extreme? And that's probably a podcast for another day, but why wait? Why wait till Monday? Why wait till that New Year's resolution? Make better decisions today and don't go to the extreme. You want that piece of chocolate, you want that glass of wine, have the effing piece of chocolate and that glass of wine. But then don't go sit and have a whole bowl of pasta and the next morning have egg whites for breakfast. Balance,
Yeah, balance it.
And it's like they think that people just think that starting a business, right? I'm going to wait till I have so much money in my savings account. Let me tell you something about this firm. I started the firm originally with someone who I thought was going to be my partner. I found out he was cheating on me right before I went to give my 3 weeks notice. And I
Oh,
remember him following me down to the parking lot of the apartment we lived in and saying, "Are you really going to do this? You really going to give your 3 week notice?" Because we were in the middle of like a breakup and like our lease was going to renew. I didn't know what we were doing. And I said, "F yeah, I am." And
mhm.
he's like, "Well, how are you going to do this? You can't afford it. You just filed for bankruptcy." I'd been in a divorce a couple years before that. He's like, you don't have enough savings. You can't." I said, "Watch me." And I got in my car and I drove to my firm and I gave my 3 weeks notice and I had 0 clients and I only had like 6K in savings, which most of it went to my rent and everything. And here I am 9 years later.
Doing your thing, doing your
Yep.
thing. So I was divorced before, and it wasn't, me and her. I mean, we don't talk at all, but she was a good woman, not a bad person. Just two
Same,
people
my
that
divorce.
we just didn't mesh. But when we got
Yeah.
divorced, you know, there was all this like, "What are you gonna do?" Da 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 da, and I was like, "I'm gonna figure it out." Because I just don't want this drama in my life because that's what's holding me back.
Yep.
And I gave her the house. It was kind of stupid now in hindsight because I should have
I
split it.
did that. I did the same thing.
Yeah, my
I just
ego.
wanted a clean break.
Aga
Yeah.
I wanted a clean break. I was like, I didn't even see her again. She was in Philly, I was in Virginia. I signed a document online, and then, obviously, like, a year later, I was like, "Damn, having an extra, like, 100, $200,000 for the house would be nice," but
Right.
but
That's
I made it. I worked at it. I worked and I worked and I worked, and clean of conscience, and the thing is, it can be done, and it doesn't matter where you are. The thing is,
mm-mm.
you gotta start now. This
Yep.
whole mentality of, "Let me put it on my to-do list or my bucket list," or, "I'm gonna do it next month or next year," or the whole I think so many people do the whole paralysis by analysis. "Let me plan my
Mhm.
business. Let me plan it," and you
Mhm.
plan and plan and plan, and then your business never started.
And the business plan means shit half the time anyway, because 2 years in, you're
Exactly,
gonna have to pivot.
because you don't know shit anyways, you know?
Yeah, you don't know it till you do it, and it's gonna change. The economy changes, technology changes. What you thought was your ideal business or client or service or product may not be your ideal business or service or product,
It could be something totally different, right? It could be thinking I can tell you my first business, not the one I sold, was I didn't even know. It was called Crazy Low. I started it. I thought it was going to be an e-commerce business and never sold shit online. But I paid a guy to help me build a website. This is before I knew anything, and he screwed me over, right?
Oh,
And I
man,
built
yeah.
my own website. And then a guy hit me up one day that I knew personally. He's like, "Hey, can you build me my website?" He's like, "Do you know how to do SEO as well?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you know how to run ads?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah. I've been doing it for my own business now after I got screwed over." And that's when I started going into the whole model of, "Okay, well, this is actually going to work. This is going to work." And I started getting more clients. Now, obviously, that company I ended up, just switching names out from another business because Crazy Low just did not really jive with anything, because I'm working with law firms and everything like that. But
Mhm.
exactly what I had thought, my business plan was, you know, take 10 grand, invest in ads, do drop shipping. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to sell pet
Mhm.
products because I have 2 cats. Everybody loves pet products, blah, 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 blah. And none of it worked out, but I grew into a whole different business model And that's exactly my whole point about, and exactly what you just said about business plans. If your business plan is so rigid and so just like this,
Right? If it's like
unless,
you,
yeah,
if it's inflexible,
it,
it's not gonna work.
it can't work because you
No?
can't tell the future. You don't know what's going to happen. You've never
Yep.
done this business unless you had like a serial entrepreneur, like let's say my wife's father, he owns a bunch of McDonald's. So he knows if he buys another McDonald's, pretty much what
Right.
to do, right? But if you've never done this business before and you think that you're going to foresee everything that's going to happen in the next
Mhm.
year, your revenue goals for month one, how many
Yeah.
clients are going to be, none of that shit.
I quickly learned, first of all, most startups, they can get a lot of free information that's out there, which is great from SCORE and other places. But the reality is they don't have the budget for the help that they've gotta get out there, they've gotta start making money, and then when they're at that point where they're actually generating a profit and they start realizing, "Oh, shit, I need a quality CPA, I need a quality business attorney that understands business to help me know what I don't know," they're in a different tier. And that, like the scaling businesses, the serial entrepreneurs, that's where we realize we can really make an impact. And, at some point in our long term plan, we want to either have a separate not for profit or a fully dedicated pro bono attorney to giving back to those true startups. But our business plan completely changed. And it's
Yeah.
changed again now, right? We're still doing pre litigation dispute resolution because we've got tons of experience to help people avoid the lawsuit to begin with. But the reality is, where we can better serve our clients is that, that holistic view of their business and say, hold on a second. Do you have the right insurance broker? Do you have the right tax advisor? Do you have this strategic team of people around you to help you on top of us making sure you avoid the lawsuit in the first
You
place?
know?
No, you don't. Let's provide some value. And then that way, when the lawsuit does come, we're like, don't worry, notify your broker. This is the insurance coverage.
You're
This is
good.
just,
Yeah. You give people the ability. Simple. It's protection, right? And
yeah,
you only need protection once you have something to protect.
right. Exactly.
Sure. Um, I've worked with so many startups, even startup law firms, and sometimes I love working with them because it's so exciting when they're young. And I'm talking about even smaller ones, 5 attorneys and less, because
Mhm,
they're at the cusp of, let's say like right now you have 3 attorneys. You used to be 5. You have 3 attorneys. You're the
mhm,
number one. You are the biggest decision maker, 100% owner, right? This
mhm,
is the most beautiful part of the firm because not only now you're not in think it mode, right? You figured out what
mhm,
your revenue engine is. You figured out
mhm,
how to mask that revenue engine. You figured out how to delegate work so it's being done
mhm,
efficiently while still maintaining quality. That's the biggest
mhm.
thing. So now,
Which
if I
mhm,
come in and I say, hey, Michelle, let's actually scale the firm, let's
mhm,
expand on client base, let's look at your revenues, and let's say, hey, and I'm just going to use a random number, but let's say you're doing 5 million in annual revenue. If we want to
mhm,
get to 10 million, what does that look like? How many
mhm,
clients? When do we need to get more staff to just support that system? And
mhm,
what does it look like for you? Do we need to delegate more? Do we need to have a chief operating officer to make sure some
mhm.
of the work
Oh,
that's being done on
absolutely.
the multiple moving parts. And at that point, it's the best part because if you go to a big firm, which I have a lot of clients, not a lot, I probably have like 10 clients that are firms that are 20 plus attorneys, doing,
Mhm,
personal injury or corporate. And at that point, I'll be honest with you. Getting anything done is a nightmare because there's so many rungs in the ladder and notifications and approvals and shit that it's like, the answer is yes. You know that
mhm,
this is what you need to do. Why are we going to, you know, play games for the next month of sending
mhm.
this to here? Let me send it to accounting. Let me send it to the CFO. Let me send it to the CEO. Now we're going to all meet together after everybody's looked at it and we're coming to a decision. And then we want to have
No.
another meeting with you. And it's like, come on, what the fuck? It's
That
just like,
bureaucracy bogs everything down. I think it's Amazon that, and don't quote me because I'm not but I think it was Amazon that what they did is they realized that their project managers at the ground level where they're, shipping distribution centers and all, they were the best suited people to make logistical decisions, and they gave a lot of autonomy to that level of their employees, which helped improve efficiency. And I think that that's a lot of that can be true as well for a lot of organizations. I
Yeah,
have to
that's the biggest thing. Can you trust your people? And a lot of business owners, and it's kind of sad that, some people just need that opportunity of trust to really
Mhm,
flourish, where they've been in every single different industry and managers don't trust you, bosses don't trust you. They look
mhm,
at you as just a guy that's doing work that you've been told to do, but they don't
mhm,
trust your insight. I have a girl that works with me, amazing, amazing woman. She's been with me now 4 years. And
mm.
when she started, she's our director of operations now, right?
Oh,
When
that's
she
awesome.
started, all she really knew how to do was scrape leads from Google Business Profile. And she was like a lead, try kind of like put lists together.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, she worked her ass off. And, at some point in time, she wore multiple hats. She was writing content. She was helping with SEO. She was helping with setting up ad campaigns. She was doing hiring for people. I mean, I really felt so blessed with her because there was a time where I had her hiring people to replace her, right?
Mm.
Not fire her, but to
Yeah.
replace her position. And in any other situation, most people would be just shaking in their boots thinking, oh my God, he's going to fire me. And it's that type of trust, but the fostering of growth. Because I told her straight up, here's the thing. I don't really have a need for unlimited
Mm.
lists, but I have a need for this, and
Right.
I'm willing to let you grow, you
That's
know?
amazing. You show but you gave her that opportunity, and then you let her rise to the occasion. And if it didn't work out, then you replaced her. I have a similar story. We had somebody who started off as a paralegal. At the time, we had an office manager, and this was my first very expensive lesson that I had to learn. Love the office manager, great person, very trustworthy, but she just didn't have the skill set that we needed for that role. So we had to let her go, but then we had an immediate need because we needed help doing all of these things, and we were gonna outsource, and we told her, "Listen, I know this isn't what you interviewed for, but you're so good at everything you do. Do you wanna kinda step into maybe a different role variation of this as an executive assistant and see if you can help us with our vendors and with this and that, and you won't be doing the paralegal stuff?" She has thrived. She has done so amazingly that she knows right now we're here, but as we continue to scale, I don't
That's the
expect
biggest one.
anyone to be.
No, no, you're right. That's the biggest one. You're right. You dropped the ball. I mean, nobody's
We all
perfect.
drop.
Yeah. Learn from the mistake. Make sure it doesn't happen again. Why did
Yeah,
this happen? Was it because we were not prepared? Was it just because you were rushed? Or
right,
maybe just shit happens, right?
right,
We thought
which
one
is
thing was
also
gonna happen, shit happens. But are you taking the steps to fix it? First off, and are you making sure that
right.
it doesn't happen again? And can you trust? One of the biggest things that I had to teach her, is confidence in herself because she was so afraid of
Yeah,
somebody taking her job and, she's a single mother, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you got my respect. You have my trust. You have my loyalty. I trust what you're going to do.
right,
I obviously don't betray it, but at the end of the day, you're not going to lose your job if you're doing everything right. And even if
right.
you mess up, I tell everybody this: fail fast and learn even
Mm,
faster.
right.
Simple as that.
Abs
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And even one time, uh, I had this guy, he was working, he's in sales. Um, and he was crying at the end of the day. And
Oh, wow.
I'm not really, I mean, this has nothing to do with like sexism. I'm just not used to grown men
Mhm.
cry. It's just not what I'm used to. So he's crying and he's asking me a bunch of questions. And I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, man, I called 150 people today. Everybody said no. Some people hung up on me. Some people said they didn't want me to call them again. And I was like, bro, that's the name of the game. That's the business. I was like, for me,
Right.
every no gets me closer to that yes. So if I can get the no out the
100%.
way as soon as possible, if we can take it
Right,
and turn a 2-minute conversation to 15 seconds to get the no, great. Let's
right.
do it. You know,
Exactly.
who
It's
cares?
teaching you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, okay, the firm is growing. You're now 100% owner, right? What are some of the big decisions that you plan for in 2026?
What. So it's gonna be just another touch point that the clients will have that
Mm,
will help the clients better communicate with us as their team. And it'll also help the attorneys by staying on top of project management even better, right? So a lot of times as corporate attorneys, we can have, we're general counsel for a lot of different companies. So we can have a lot of different projects in the pipeline. And while we do a great job of keeping track of it, this case manager is going to help us do that even better and improve the client experience. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is tech. We're investing in a lot of technology this year so that we can make sure we're delivering consistent deliverables and to cut down on our attorney, drafting time so that the
Mhm.
attorneys are doing all these everybody's so afraid in the legal industry. Oh my God, we're going to be replaced by AI. No, guys, AI's gotten it wrong. ChatGPT has gotten some security statutes wrong. So A, don't be
Yeah.
relying on that completely. And B, use it as a tool, like everything. Use it as a tool to, we get
I mean, but
um
that's how you build those relationships, right?
right,
True clients. So even my clients. So I do some consulting for some other companies, some larger companies, but majority of my clients, law firm owners, firm founders, I do a lot of consulting for free. And I mean, we don't call it consulting to them because it's just me talking to you, giving you advice.
right.
Hey, this is how it should be done. And sometimes I've spent hours. Sometimes my wife has told me, get off the fucking phone because it's dinner time. But the thing is,
Yeah.
they need this advice because everybody else is either too scared to talk to them the way they should be. And,
Hmm.
because that's the boss, or I can't tell
Yeah.
him he's wrong. And, I have to tell him straight up, hey, what you're doing is wrong. I mean, it's not because you're
Hmm.
dumb. It's not because you don't know. It's just because the direction right now for this situation, there are better options and you should explore
Hmm.
those options. Or, hey, I know a guy right now, his firm's doing pretty well. He's doing about almost a half a million a month, right? In receivables, which is very good for a small, it's only him and two attorneys. And when we started with him, he was doing about 35,000. So 3 years,
Wow.
3 years, right? He's now doing half a
That's
million a month. He's doing
amazing.
about 6 million a year. But the thing is, the craziest part was with him is the micromanaging of everything. Once you let
Mm.
go of the micromanaging, he flourished because first off, he didn't know. So if you're gonna micromanage, do it well. That's my do
Right,
it
right.
do it well.
Know what you're
Um,
talking about.
if you ask back then, if you asked them, "What are your receivables this month?" I don't know,
Oh,
20,
no, I for every
30.
month.
I know exactly what it is. Okay, what are your expenses? How much are you spending on services? I gotta talk to my bookkeeper. You don't know. I know off the back of my head, and I
Mhm,
can tell you almost down to the penny for every service that we pay for, how many seats that we're paying for. I even have
mhm,
services that obviously I should cut them out, but we pay for that we're not currently really using the best of our ability of
mhm,
it, where we may use 20% of it, things like that. And if you ask a business owner, they don't know these answers
mm,
off the top of their head, or at least something
yep,
along those lines, there's a major gap.
yeah,
And getting him to that point, because one of the things I was like, so when we first got in there, I was like, what's your CAC? Do you know what CAC is? Cost per
mm-mm.
acquisition, right? How much does it
Okay,
cost you to generate a client? He's like, I
that's
don't
something
know.
I'm
You got to know it, because then at that point you can scale. Like, so one of the things that our firm does is, as a revenue accelerator, we need to know what it costs to bring a client in, and then
mhm,
variations of your clients. So if there's certain, let's say, you have a service or there's a transactional business, service that you offer that's maybe $10,000. I'm just gonna use a round
mhm,
number, right? There's
mhm.
another one that's $5,000. Well, if $5,000 is, dramatically less cost to
Right,
acquire than the 10,000, and it's not like, one's $1, the other's $2. If getting a $10,000 client, I'm just gonna use random numbers, $2, but to get the $5,000 client is 15 cents,
mhm,
it's just understood,
yeah,
double, triple, quadruple
that makes
down
sense.
on the 5,000 and then run it up. It was so quick because he kept looking at so many different, he would only take clients that was like, I have a budget of $20,000, $30,000 a month. And he would
Mhm,
find himself pushing himself out of business because
mm,
there's another attorney that's going to come up and say, hey, I'll do the same shit for you for 5 grand, and now you're my client, right? And he was
mhm,
losing. And I would see the people want to give him money. They're like, yeah, I got
mhm,
$7,500 right now. I need this contract drafted. It's a
mhm,
contract that's being drafted. It's not,
mhm.
you're not doing the new constitution. It's a simple
Right,
contract.
right.
He's like, no, that's too little. And I was like, I was like, John, have you ever really looked at how long it takes to draft these contracts?
Huh?
And I mean, obviously, some of them may require a lot more, especially if they're doing, going for a public offering or something. This is none
Mm,
of that. This is just a simple maybe 3 to
Right.
5 page contract. Like, you don't need.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Look forward to talking to you again.
No problem. Thank you, Michelle. Have a good
Alright.
one.
Own your growth. Scale with systems powered by 𝐻𝐜𝐜. Subscribe to Success in Excess for those who lead with precision and scale with purpose.